the biography of a book. It's biographical drama about how Isabel Wilkerson, played by Angelina Ellis-Taylor, cast the origins of our discontent. And the book argues that racism, as experienced in America, is not simply based on race, is part of a wider global caste system, as you said in your questions, which kind of create hierarchies in which superiority, inferiority, exclusion, exploitation are a kind of cornerstone of a modern economy. And we meet Isabel Wilkerson in the wake of the Trayvon Martin shooting, which is dramatized, and we hear the police phone call, and she's asked to do an investigation of that, and that then leads her off into this much wider field. Her inquiries take her to Germany, where we an investigation of the Holocaust, and as you said, this extraordinary revelation that apparently the Nazis did look to
studied American race laws,
which is absolutely jaw-dropping, and is clearly one of the cornerstones of this argument. And then the difference between subjugation and extermination, there's the arguments about whether or not these two things can be combined. And then to India, where, as you said, the Dalit is, formerly untouchables sent down. Untouchables, is that? Yeah. Basically, we've scenes of people being sent down sewers to clean the sewers with their bare hands, wearing only a kind of a layer of grease to protect them from the foul germs and everything. And those scenes are just really, really so horrifying and distressing. And during all of this, the author suffers losses of people close to her. And we see dramatizations of historical events. We see dramatizations of an allegiance between black and white civil rights workers infiltrating segregated America that led to the writing of a book called Deep South. We see the dramatization of this story of this young kid, Little League baseball player, who is not allowed to swim in the swimming. And then afterwards, an interview with somebody, which as we heard from that interview, I thought that must be real. That has to be the real person. Yep. But no, apparently completely dramatized.
Very good actor.
Yeah, I know. And I'm delighted to be corrected on that. But I think the fact that I did think it was like, because one of the things that the whole film is doing is it appears to be sitting on that cusp between dramatization and documentary. So what we come down to in the end is why? Why not documentary? Why do it like this? And what Ava DuVernay said there is because it's emotion. It's the key to emotion. When she thinks about emotional response, she doesn't think about documentary. Although I have to say that I think there was an emotional response to 13.
Absolutely. If you watch that, it's impossible not to have emotion.
Yeah, precisely. But what she's talking about is a very kind of specific emotional response to drama. And somehow, despite all the kind of the odds against it, there are times when that fusing of the personal and the political, the story of the author's own personal tragedies and the much wider historical context, the individual and the sociological, the individual case and the wider scope in which it's happening, the historical and the contemporary, the dramatic and the documentary, there are times when that really, really comes together. There are also times when it feels like it doesn't quite, in which it's as if the subject is so big, because as you quite rightly said, this is a film about an idea. I mean, her description of it as the biography of a book and your description of it as a film about an idea, both of those are absolutely, in a way, what you need to know about the film. That is what it is. It is really neither drama nor doc nor history nor comedy. It is those things. It is a film about an idea and it is the biography of a book. I did think it looked terrific. And I do think that the thing about the way in which she's used 16 mil, I was thinking to myself afterwards, am I lying when I said, because she said, have you read it? And I have read it, that it was on 16 mil, but I read it, I'm pretty certain I read it afterwards. I know it must have sounded massively arrogant to say, because it looks like it is of a piece. When you look at, I mean, I know nowadays, as we saw from the Holdovers, it's perfectly possible to shoot something on digital and then make it look like it was shot, because we had all that stuff about, that whole thing was completely digital. And of course, in the case of Dune, that it's shot digitally and then transferred to film and then, transferred back and then in some cases transferred to print. So saying, well, it looked to me from the grain like a 16 mil film could be just some, but am pretty certain that that's what I thought when I was watching it. And what it does do is it unifies all those different things. So as she said, the past and the present, the contemporary and the historical, the distant and the near. No matter where you are, the film looks like a single whole. And that's really important, because otherwise it becomes a completely unwieldy. And there are many moments in it in which characters actually say to the author, What? What are you? No, these aren't the same things. You're trying to expand something from a single, and it won't all hold together. And I think that it is extraordinarily impressive that she has managed to make it as coherent as it is. I think it doesn't always work, but even when it doesn't work, it's impossible not to admire the ambition and just what she was saying in that interview, just the sheer kind of rationality of thought in how am I going to do this? Well, I want it to be emotionally engaging. I want it to be coherent. I want it to be about an idea, and I want it to be about the life story of a book.
Yes.
Having set myself all those challenges, which is almost like a kind of, Lars von Trier, how many things can I make difficult before I make this film? I think the fact that it works as well as it does is pretty remarkable.
So I'd say it is a tough watch. I mean, the sequence towards, like the final 20 minutes, although at the end it's hopeful, maybe, but there's a really grim sequence of events as she ties in slavery and the caste system and concentration camps, so it is definitely a tough watch. But to come out of a movie and to be thinking, right, so caste is bigger than race theory. So race fits under caste. Caste explains. People are going to go away and they're going to talk about this film, whether they agree with it or not.
And that's the key thing, is that it is the starting point of a conversation.
It's an argument.
And precisely, it is an argument. And I think it's impossible not to be impressed by anyone who has the chutzpah and the gumption to make a film which is an argument starting point. Which is you're going to come out of this and you're going to discuss all these things, including the form, including was that a real person? Was that? I mean, as I said, I have never been so delighted to have got something wrong and be corrected, and because that is kind of what you think watching the film.